My name's Michael Lawson, and I'm 52 years old. I live in a quiet town in Oregon now, the kind that smells like wet pine and coffee. The kind where people still nod when they pass you on the street, and the same old country songs play on the radio every morning. I moved here 5 years ago, thinking I was starting over. Turns out, I was just circling back to everything I'd been running from. I run a small repair shop on the corner of Maple and 5th. I fix things people forgot could be fixed: old radios, record players, watches that stopped ticking years ago. It's honest work. It keeps my hands busy and my mind quieter than it used to be. But some nights, when the shop lights go off and the world gets still, I hear her voice. Claire's. It's been almost 20 years since she left. And yet, in the strange way life works, last fall, she came back. It was early September. The air had that slow warmth of summer fading out, the kind that makes you miss something before it's even gone. I was closing up shop when I saw her through the glass door. Same auburn hair, now streaked with gray. Same look, a mix of calm and chaos that never made sense but always made me stay. She smiled, that careful kind of smile you give someone whose heart you once held like a live wire. "Hi, Mike," she said. For a second, I forgot how to breathe. "Claire," I managed. "You look older?" She grinned. "So do you." We laughed. It was strange, how easy it felt, like time had folded in on itself and dropped us back into some half-remembered version of our 20s. Except now, everything hurt a little more. Even the memories. We ended up walking to Henderson's Diner, same place we used to go on Friday nights when the world still felt endless. She ordered the same thing, a black coffee and blueberry pie. I didn't even have to ask. "I can't believe this place still exists," she said, tracing the chipped ceramic mug with her finger. "Neither can I. Guess some things are too stubborn to die." There was silence, but it wasn't awkward. It was heavy, full. Like both of us were carrying invisible boxes we'd never unpacked. "So," I said finally, "what brings you back to Ashford?" She took a deep breath. "My mother. She's sick. I came to help out for a while." I nodded. "I'm sorry to hear that." "Thanks. She's tough. Always was." Then she looked up at me, and for a moment I saw that same fire she had the night we met, 27 years ago, outside a dive bar, rain pouring so hard the streetlights looked like ghosts. She was wearing this green jacket and laughing at something her friend said, and I remember thinking, that's the sound I want to wake up to for the rest of my life. And for a while, I did. But life, as it tends to, got messy. We tried to build something real, an apartment, a shared dream, a little band of plans that kept collapsing under the weight of bills, expectations, and our own stubborn pride. She wanted to move to Portland, chase photography. I wanted to stay, keep my workshop alive. We were both right, and both wrong. When she left, she didn't take anything but her camera and the smell of cedar from the closet we shared. I remember finding one of her prints weeks later, a picture of me, fixing a radio, head tilted, brow furrowed. On the back, she'd written, "You never see yourself the way I do." That line lived in my mind like a song that never fades. Back at the diner, I wanted to ask her 100 questions: where she'd been, who she'd become, whether she was happy, but all that came out was, "Do you still take photos?" She smiled. "Every day. Mostly people. Their hands, their faces, the spaces between them. I like catching what's about to disappear." "That's always been your thing." She nodded. "And you? Still fixing what's already gone?" We both laughed at that. Because it was true, in every way. That night, after we said goodbye, I walked home slower than usual. The air smelled like wood smoke and rain, and for the first time in years I didn't feel old. I felt alive, confused, terrified, hopeful, but alive. The next few weeks passed in that quiet, uncertain rhythm life takes on when something old stirs again. Claire stayed in town longer than she planned. Her mother's health was up and down, and she didn't want to leave her alone. I'd see her sometimes at the market, sometimes walking down Main Street with her camera hanging by a faded leather strap. We started having coffee once a week. No plans, no labels. Just catching up. At first, it was small talk, weather, local gossip, things that didn't matter. But with each cup, the walls got thinner. One morning, we sat outside the diner watching the leaves start to turn. She asked, "Do you ever feel like this town's stuck in time?" I smiled. "I think it's us who are stuck. The town just keeps moving slow enough we don't notice." She laughed, and then there was that look again, soft, remembering. "You never changed much, Mike." "Guess I did," I said. "Just not in the ways people see." She told me about the years away, living in Seattle, working at a newspaper, then freelancing for art magazines. There were people, she said, some serious, some not. She didn't mention names, and I didn't ask. When she asked about me, I told her about the shop, about my father passing, about the nights I spent fixing things just to keep from thinking too much. I told her about how I almost sold the place once, but couldn't bring myself to. "It's the only thing I ever finished," I said. "You finished me once," she replied quietly, eyes on her cup. Neither of us spoke after that for a long time. That evening, I drove her home. The street was lined with maple trees, their leaves already orange, the kind of color that makes you ache without knowing why. Her mother's house looked smaller than I remembered, or maybe I'd just grown. The porch light was dim, but warm. "Thanks for the ride," she said. "No problem." She lingered, fingers on the door handle. "You want to come in?" "Just for a minute. Mom's asleep." I shouldn't have. I knew that, but I did. Inside smelled like old wood and lavender. Her mother's framed photographs were still on the wall, from her younger days when she used to paint portraits. Claire poured us both some tea, and we sat in the living room surrounded by memories that didn't belong to us but somehow did. She looked around, sighed. "Feels strange, being back here. Like I'm borrowing someone else's life." I nodded. "That's what coming home is. You never fit the same way twice." She looked at me, really looked, and said, "You always had words that felt like the truth, even when they hurt." I smiled. "Guess that's all I ever had." The rain started, soft at first, then steady. Claire got up, went to the window, and said, almost to herself, "Remember that storm our first winter together? The one that took the power out?" "How could I forget? You made us sit by candlelight and tell each other everything we'd never said." She turned, grinning. "You fell asleep halfway through my story?" "I was listening," I said. "Dream listening." She laughed, that same sharp, musical sound that once made me want to live forever. And something inside me, something I thought had rusted away, started moving again. A few nights later, she came by my shop. It was late, the sign already flipped to closed. "I knew you'd still be here," she said, standing in the doorway. "Old habits die hard." She watched me work for a while. I was fixing a small clock, its gears worn down by time. "Still trying to make time behave?" she asked. "Trying to keep it from falling apart." She smiled. "Maybe you can't fix everything, Mike." "Maybe," I said. "But I can try." Then she walked closer. "You haven't changed," she whispered, and I wanted to tell her, either had she. Not really. Just softer now, slower, like a song remixed by years. She took the clock from my hand, set it aside, and looked at me with that same mix of sadness and want that always lived behind her eyes. "You ever think about us?" she asked. "Every day," I said, and that was the truth. We didn't kiss that night. We didn't need to. But the air between us felt electric, like something remembered how to breathe. In the days after, I tried to pretend nothing had changed. But she was everywhere, in the way. Sunlight hit the workshop windows, in the songs on the radio, in the smell of rain on the pavement, and one afternoon, she showed up again, holding an old camera. "I found this in Mom's attic," she said. "Thought maybe you could fix it." I took it, looked it over. "This thing's from the 70s. It's been through a lot." She smiled. "Haven't we all?" I fixed it, of course. When I handed it back, she looked at me like she wanted to say something, but didn't. Instead, she lifted the camera and took a photo of me, just like before. "Why?" I asked. "Because I still see you the way I did," she said softly, Then she left. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about her mother, about time, about all the things we lose and still somehow carry. And then I remembered the line she once wrote, "You never see yourself the way I do." Maybe that's what love really is, not about fixing or holding or staying. Maybe it's about seeing. About being seen, once, fully, and carrying that version of yourself through the years. Winter came early that year. The leaves hadn't even finished falling when the first frost hit. I remember stepping outside one morning and seeing my breath curl into the air, like smoke from a memory that refused to fade. By then, Claire and I had fallen into a kind of rhythm, not quite friendship, not quite something more. We'd meet for coffee, take walks by the river, sometimes sit in silence for an hour and just watch the world keep moving. It was strange how quiet love can be when you've already lost it once. One Sunday, she called me. Her voice was thin, tired. "Mike," she said, "can you come by? It's Mom." By the time I got there, the sun had dipped low, bleeding through the curtains in pale gold. Her mother was lying in the small bedroom off the hall, her breathing shallow. Claire sat by her side, holding her hand. "She's been asking about you," Claire said without looking up. I blinked. "Me? She always liked you. Said you had kind eyes." I didn't know what to say to that. So I just sat down beside her, and together we waited, in that way people do when they know what's coming and can't stop. At one point, her mother stirred, opened her eyes, and whispered, "Take care of each other." Then she smiled faintly, and that was it. The kind of quiet that followed wasn't the kind that asks for words. It was the kind that fills every corner of you, until all that's left is breath and heartbeat. Claire didn't cry right away. She just held her mother's hand, as if she could will her back with silence. When the tears came, they came slow, like they'd been waiting years to fall. The funeral was small. Old neighbors, church friends, a few people from town who remembered her from better days. Afterward, I drove Claire home. Neither of us spoke much. When we reached her porch, she turned to me. "You don't have to stay." "I know," I said. "But I will." She nodded, and for a long time we just stood there, the wind moving through the dry branches, the sky heavy with the kind of gray that never really lifts. That night, I slept on the couch. In the morning, I woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of her camera clicking. "You taking pictures of me sleeping now?" I said. She smiled, just a little. "You look peaceful." "It's rare." I laughed. "Guess I'll take that as a compliment." She looked at me, really looked, and said, "It is." Over the next few weeks, we cleaned out the house together. Boxes of old letters, photographs, her mother's paintings. Every corner of that house held a story. One afternoon, I found a faded envelope with Claire's name on it. "Hey," I said, handing it to her. "You should read this." She opened it, eyes scanning the page. Then she went still. "It's from my mom," she said. "She wrote it years ago." "Can I?" She shook her head. "Not yet." That night, she read it alone. I found her later sitting on the porch, letter folded neatly in her lap. "What did it say?" I asked quietly. She took a breath. She said she always knew I'd come back here. That this town wasn't done with me. That maybe there were still things I needed to fix. Her voice cracked on that last word. "She meant us," I said. Claire didn't answer, just stared out at the dark street, the sound of crickets filling the silence between us. A week later, she told me she was thinking of selling the house. "I can't stay here forever," she said. "Too many ghosts." I nodded. "You'll know when it's time." She smiled sadly. "You always say that." And then, almost without meaning to, she asked, "What about you, Mike? You ever think of leaving?" "Sometimes," I said. "But this place, it's in my bones. I wouldn't know who I am without it. Maybe that's why I left," she whispered. "To find out who I was without you." Her words hit deep, but not in the way that hurt. More like truth finally landing where it belonged. That winter, we spent Christmas together. Just the two of us. She brought over a small tree, and we decorated it with old ornaments from her mother's attic. She played music, Soft jazz, the kind that makes you nostalgic for things you never lived. After dinner, she poured us wine, and we sat by the fire, the glow soft and uneven on her face. I used to imagine this, she said quietly. Us older. Sitting by a fire somewhere, no pressure, no pretending. I smiled. You always did have a good imagination. She nudged me. Don't ruin it. We laughed, and for a moment, it felt like we'd made it, through the years, the distance, the heartbreak. Like we'd come out the other side not untouched, but whole. Later that night, when the fire burned low, she said, You know what scares me most? What? That I'll leave again. That I'll hurt you again. I looked at her, the flicker of flames in her eyes. Then don't, I said. She shook her head slowly. It's not that simple, Mike. I'm not who I was. I can't promise I'll stay. I don't need a promise, I said. Just honesty. She leaned closer, rested her head against my shoulder. I can give you that, she whispered, and for that night, honesty was enough. Winter thawed slowly that year. The first sign of spring came in the form of rain, washing the snow from the sidewalks, the air smelling of earth and beginnings. One morning, I found a letter tucked under the door of my shop. No return address, just my name. Inside was a photograph, the one she took months ago, of me at the workbench, eyes down, hands steady. On the back, she'd written, Some things can be fixed. Others are meant to be remembered. My heart sank and lifted at the same time. She was gone. The day Claire left, the sky was gray but gentle, the kind that feels like a whisper, not a warning. Her car must have driven off before sunrise. There was no note, just that photograph. No goodbye, no closure. Just the same silence she'd once left me with 20 years ago, only softer this time, almost like kindness that I told myself I should have seen it coming. She'd always been like the weather, impossible to hold, but beautiful while she stayed. For the first few days, I kept expecting her to walk back through the door. The shop bell would ring, and my chest would tighten, but it was never her. Just customers, strangers, people with broken clocks and radios that wouldn't tune right. Life has a way of pretending nothing happened, even when everything did. Weeks passed. Then months. Spring arrived, green and loud. The air smelled of fresh paint and cut grass. I threw myself into work. Fixed things that didn't need fixing. Stayed late. Sometimes I'd find her camera still sitting on the shelf in the back room. She'd forgotten it, or maybe left it on purpose. Inside, there was one roll of undeveloped film. I took it to the local photo lab, the one that somehow still existed despite everything digital. When I picked up the photos a week later, I sat on the tailgate of my truck, flipping through them slowly. There were shots of the town, the diner, the river, my workshop. One of her mother's house, sunlight spilling across the porch, and then there were the ones of me, working, laughing, looking out the window, unaware. But the last photo stopped me cold. It was the two of us, sitting by the fire last Christmas. She must have set the timer. We weren't looking at the camera, just at each other. And for once, I saw what she'd always said I couldn't. The quiet in her eyes wasn't sadness. It was peace. After that, something shifted in me. I stopped waiting, not because I stopped caring, but because I finally understood what it meant to let someone go without losing what they gave you. Claire had a way of showing me the world through light, every reflection, every shadow, every tiny flicker of something fleeting. Maybe that was her gift, and this time she'd left it with me. That summer, the shop got busier. New faces, new stories. A young couple came in one afternoon with an old record player. The girl said it belonged to her grandfather. The boy said he wanted to surprise her by fixing it. As I worked, they stood close, whispering, laughing. And for the first time in a long while, I smiled without feeling the weight of memory pressing down. When I handed it back, the boy thanked me. I said, Take care of it. It's got history. He grinned. So do we. And something about that, the simplicity, the youth, made me realize how full circle life can be. In late September, the trees started turning again. That same orange and gold that had marked her return a year ago. I found myself walking by the river one evening, the light soft and slanting, There was a woman standing by the edge, camera in hand, taking photos of the water. For a second, my heart stopped. The hair, the stance, the way she tilted her head. But when she turned, it wasn't her. She smiled politely, a stranger, and went back to her lens, still, for that moment. Just a heartbeat. I'd felt something warm, not the sting of loss, but the echo of love that doesn't vanish, only changes shape. That night, I sat on my porch with a cup of coffee, the cool air brushing against my face. The town was quiet, the kind of quiet that feels alive. Somewhere down the street, wind chimes played a tune that didn't have an ending, and I thought about Claire, about how she came back, not to stay, but to remind me that I still could. Maybe that's what she meant by her mother's letter. That some things we don't fix, we just carry forward, not as pain, but as proof we lived. I still have the photograph. The one from Christmas. It sits on the shelf above the counter, beside an old clock that never keeps perfect time. Every morning, I wind it anyway, not because I expect it to work, but because some habits are worth keeping. And sometimes, when the shop is quiet and the afternoon light slants just right through the window, I swear I can almost hear her laugh again, soft, fading. But there. Maybe she'll come back someday. Or maybe she won't. Either way, the world keeps turning, and I keep fixing what I can. Because that's the thing about love, and time, and people like us. We don't move on. We move through.